Hello there, my name's Card. I'm a long-time progressive community organiser and activist. And here on my YouTube page, I like to make simple little videos talking about topics which interest me. Today, I just want to talk for a little bit about the personal contradiction embodied by so many hardline conservative commentators. In particular, I wanted to use Nick Fuentes as something of an example here, because he seems to be trying to make one last desperate grasp for political and cultural relevancy right now. If you're watching this video, surely you already know who Nick Fuentes is. Independent, far-right-wing commentator, provocateur, and influencer. I just wanted to use him to make two quick points about how, one, all conservative commentators are blatantly hypocrites who only seek to grift their audience of gullible rubes, and two, that this desire to make themselves into figures of note by saying anything they think will energize a reactionary base of support is also typically the source of all their own problems. You can very correctly point out that Fuentes has flip-flopped on the topic of freedom of speech and gun rights and whether or not to support elected officials whenever it suits him. He doesn't have any actual concrete political principles. But in the interests of standing out among the many other wannabe conservative influencers, he also says stuff relatively few others will say. Like he'll be as loud as he can about being anti-LGBT. But at the same time, he's also very clearly a closeted gay guy himself. This isn't mere speculation, he's very openly what we could call something of a flamer, who's surprisingly flirty with his innermost circle of fans. And he is perfectly willing to performatively say all sorts of pro-white supremacist, pro-American white ethno-state shit just for attention. I guess he's banking there on the hope that no one ever points out that he himself is a brown-eyed Hispanic. It's not like he's ever going to actually get the based trad MAGA ethno-state he's describing, and he knows that, so he won't have to ever face the personal consequences he'd be looking at as a gay brown man if that were ever to come about. The same goes for essentially every reactionary political figure that tries to get in front of the public limelight. Every single one of these people who've tried to make a big name for themselves in the conservative media ecosystem the past 8 or so years is just a walking contradiction. Like Steve Bannon, a bloated, lecherous lush who ran a newspaper for a while and who is still cashing producers' checks from his Seinfeld days. He does not have an Aryan spirit. Quite the opposite, he's a Jewish stereotype. No surprise then, perhaps, that Trump loves him so much, but that's neither here nor there. Or what about Milo Yiannopoulos, who fags around between college campuses talking about two things: how much he loves having unprotected anal sex with black men, and building an all-white America. We can only hope that if he ever gets the latter before he dies of AIDS, he'll quickly go the way of Ernst Röhm all the same. Or what about Lauren Boebert, the supposed demure, trad, moral congresswoman who's dating a drag show running bar owner who, as we all know, she's up to give dry, out-of-wedlock public handies to in the middle of children's theatres. Or Marjorie Taylor Greene, another supposed trad conservative congresswoman who's just an off-the-rack hooting suburban moron. You'd think Greene would cool it with the transphobia, considering she barely passes as female herself, but hey, it comes as no big shock that all those private fitness instructors in Georgia she cucks her husband with all have pretty low standards. They're all hypocrites that just want attention. They don't have any actual values. If they ever actually got the political solutions they claim to want, they'd suffer for it. They'd be the dog that catches the car. But that doesn't mean it's not perfectly valid for us progressives to call them massive hypocrites and denounce them in their rhetoric here and now. If you don't want to be criticised for being a hypocrite, don't espouse those sorts of values while living contrary to them. If you don't want so many people to dislike you or want you removed from media platforms or wishing harm upon you, don't go out of your way to position yourself as a political commentator so many people have such good reason to hate. People don't dislike, say, Nick Fuentes just because of some innate characteristic of his, but because he's tried his hardest to become a public figure by saying things people don't like. He, in a very large way, brings the hatred of others onto himself. So he's got only himself to blame for the consequences of his choice to become a widely disliked public figure. Nick Fuentes is perpetually self-defeating. The way he's chosen to make himself marginally relevant is what opens him up to so much criticism and why no one respectable wants to deal with him. Same with, say, Alex Jones. If you don't want to get sued for everything you have, don't knowingly say slanderous, completely false stuff to an audience of millions all day, every day, for a decade and a half. What did you think would happen? Same largely goes for the hardline conservative writer Andy Go, or the actual literal avowed self-described neo-Nazi Richard Spencer. These people spend all their time advocating political violence in the streets. Then they go outside for the first time in months, and what happens? Someone throws something at them, or someone steps up and takes a swing. Guess what? No one would try to do that to you if you weren't choosing to be a Nazi. And they're the kinds who advocate political violence as a means to an end anyway. So are we supposed to be sad about it either? I'm not going to be. It's just something to think about. Hearing all this articulated might just help you out sometime in the future if you ever find yourself needing to explain exactly why these sorts of people are grifters and hypocrites who attract so much vitriol to themselves. And if you might want to hear more of what I have to say, feel free to subscribe to this YouTube page or just take a look at my other videos. Either way, goodbye for now, and have a lovely day.